Hello everybody and welcome back to the Data Playbook. Today we have the Sunday pregame reviews, so let's get right into it. Our next game will be Minnesota at Detroit, with Detroit favored on the money line and a spread of 8.5, with a total point line of 47.5. In terms of the rankings, the one notable one I see from Minnesota is this allowed passing rank, being in the top third, so they're pretty good at stopping their opponents from passing. They're much worse at stopping their opponents from rushing, but everything else is kind of about average. Their rushing's not great too, but up here it's about average. For Detroit, they have a really good scoring rank, so they're one of the best in the leagues at scoring, and they're very good at rushing, as well as stopping their opponents from rushing. And then we'll flip over to the averages to correlate with those. And with the quarterbacks for this game, you have the return of J.J. McCarthy, and then you have Jared Goff. J.J. McCarthy had an average of 12.5 fantasy points per game over his 2 games that he played. Jared Goff has an average of 16.8 fantasy points per game. In his 2 games, J.J. McCarthy had 3 passing interceptions and 1 fumble lost due to a sack. Jared Goff all season has had 3 interceptions, with 2 fumbles lost due to a sack. With their averages and their breakdowns week by week, here you can see with McCarthy, his averages may not make a bunch of sense due to that 1 week that's much weaker, but it still counts in there, so that's what it is. Just looking at the quarterback's rushing carry share, both of these ones don't rush very much, so they have a very small share of the carries on the team, something probably less than about 5% to 8%. The running backs in this game are Jordan Mason and Jamar Gibbs. Jordan Mason averages 10.5 fantasy points per game, while Jamar Gibbs averages 20 fantasy points per game this season. 1 turnover has been given up by Jordan Mason this season, and then here's your team averages. If we look at the rushing carry share, Jordan Mason has the largest share to be expected, with almost 61%. You have Aaron Jones here still, that has about 12%, 12.5%, so he still has some portion from when he got hurt that still kind of lingers out there. For Detroit, Jamar Gibbs gets the largest share at 53.8%, 53.9% of the team's total share. Here you can see Montgomery also has a pretty large share. So if I bring up Montgomery here, because he plays so much with Gibbs, it's interesting to just see his stats. So he averages 12 fantasy points per game this season. And if we look at their averages, your number 1 receivers are Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Justin Jefferson having 15.4 average fantasy points per game and Amon-Ra getting 21 fantasy points per game, with neither of them giving up any turnovers this season. This is their averages and their weekly breakdown. And if we look at their team receiving share, Justin Jefferson gets almost 40% of the team's total receiving share, which is a pretty large percentage, even for a number 1 receiver. Over here with Amon-Ra, it's a bunch more average, about that 33% of the total team's receiving share. For the number 2 receivers, you have Jordan Addison and Jameson Williams. Addison has almost 16 fantasy points per game on average this season, while Jameson has 8.3 average fantasy points per game. Again, with no turnovers between the 2 of them, we'll look at their averages and their team receiving share, where Addison gets about 20.3% of the team's total receiving share, and Jameson gets about 17.7% of the team's total receiving share. And then wrapping up with the tight ends, you have TJ Hawkinson and Sam Laporta, with TJ Hawkinson averaging 7.9 fantasy points per game and Sam Laporta averaging 10.7. With no turnovers, we'll look at their averages. And with their team receiving share, TJ Hawkinson gets about 14.5% of the team's total receiving share. Sam Laporta gets about 20.75% of the team's total receiving share. So it seems like the big thing that Detroit will want to do today is run the ball all over Minnesota, since it's Minnesota's worst rank, and it's one of the best ones from Detroit. I'm sure there will be still some pretty good passing back and forth, especially with this allowed passing rank of 8. They may put a stop to that and have to rely on the rushing game. So we'll see what really happens. It does seem like Vegas is right, though, in the way that they favored the game. So that's all I have for this game today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.